Hey guys, it's Monica at Academic Phoenix Plus, and welcome to the next video tutorial on how to texture a creature using ZBrushCore. In the previous tutorial, we used ZSpheres. Now we're going to convert it into a base mesh so that we can start adding details. If you are new to this channel, I post 3D tutorials on a weekly basis. Software I cover include Maya, ZBrush, and Substance Painter. So if that is your sort of thing, please consider subscribing. So bring out your creativity, open up your software, and let's add detail to a weird looking creature that I randomly created as I was playing around with ZSpheres. So we created ZSpheres. And you probably, I would probably recommend, oh my gosh, I'm using Maya controls and I'm like, why isn't this working? You probably want to go in and make any edits that you want now on your model before you turning into skin or mesh. So before, and then we're just going to start adding details. So for example, for me, I'm in draw mode and I'm going to go ahead and click on Alt and I'm going to get rid of the wings just because my character is already, or my creature is already pretty busy. And again, you can always go to adaptive skin here at the bottom right and click on preview to see what it looks like. And I definitely don't want those lumps, so let me go ahead and get rid of those as well. So now my creature looks more like this. Again, you can do a preview to see what it looks like. And there you go. Now there are some issues that I see there's a little bit of pulling here and a bit of pulling there, but I'm going to take care of that when I start removing details. Okay, so let's talk about the next step. So once you're done with your ZSpheres and you like the way this creature looks like, you're ready to start creating more details, we are going to click on this little button right here, which is called Make an Adaptive Skin. Now, it's going to be a little confusing because when I create this adaptive skin, it's going to make a object up here. So we really haven't talked about what is up here. These are the different shapes that I pulled in the past. And the reason why there's so many of them is because I was testing this adaptive skin on this creature earlier. And basically it just shows you that right now I have this tool called the ZSphere 1. And this is the one that I call UG, which I was messing around with. And then I have another one called Sculpt, which I was messing around with. And then I have Cylinder. So if you want to get back to it's kind of like different versions of your object, and you can click on ZSphere 1, and that's the one that has a preview of the adaptive skin. So when we click on this button, Make a Adaptive Skin, we're going to get Skin ZSphere 1. This is the one, and you know that we're on it because you can click on it, and you can see that we're on it because the big one here, this big shape here, is the actual one we're taking a look at right now. So if I click on the cylinder, you'll see that the cylinder is here now. So make sure that you grab the new creature, or in this case, it's called Skin ZSphere 1. And this is the one that you can actually start sculpting. You'll also notice that we have subtools, geometry, and a bunch of other things. And the skin adaptive is missing because this isn't ZSpheres. This is actually mesh. To make sure that we label this, I'm going to go to my subtool, and I can actually go down here and just click on rename. And this can be my creature. You can call it creature skin or whatever you want. So what's going to happen in a second is that instead of calling it skin ZSphere 1, is now called creature skin. So now I can actually go back to this one, which is my adaptive skin. And I can actually go back to my creature skin, and this is the one that I want to model. So just make sure you're on the right tool, basically, the one that doesn't have adaptive. Okay, the next thing you'll notice is that it looks pretty low poly, but if I click on this, my mesh is crazy high. So I really can't use this right now. What I'm going to do actually is go to geometry, and I'm actually going to lower the topology using ZRemesher. And then it's going to ask me, okay, well, just to let you know, you're limited, but let's go ahead and click OK. So right now, my points are 1.53, but it looks really, really blocky. So the purpose for Z meshing is to kind of take my object and just remesh it so that it would just give me low poly amounts, and then I can start building from there. All right, so that did it, and it dropped it down to 10,000 points. Still looks blocky, but that's okay. It was looking blocky anyway. But the big one is here. Take a look at that mesh. That's pretty low. That's pretty good. And now I can divide it. So now I've got 42,000, divide again, and now I've got 170,000, and it now is actually still very functional. It's actually even cleaner than my 1.59 million. So remeshing it will lower the polygon count, and then you can divide it, and now you have control over the amount of polygons you have. All right, I'm going to save this before something horrible happens. So File, Save As. So now it's up to you how you want to start designing your character or your creature. Now, if you wanted to separate these pieces, kind of like in the armor, you can. So to separate your pieces, let's say I want to separate the head from, or maybe I want to separate the neck from everything else. So I'm going to mask that section out. And before I get started, click this on Make Poly Mesh. There it is. So once you click on Make Poly Mesh, you'll notice that I can start working on split. Hello. And again, don't forget, if you hold on Control and you click on here, we actually have different types of masking. So we can do a lasso. I can click on the side view to make sure that when I lasso it, it's a little bit more even. And then of course it selected other areas that I didn't want, but that's okay. I can always deselect it by, again, holding down Control, holding down Alt, and then I can deselect it using the lasso. Or you can always go back here and go back to just a regular rectangle. Whoops. And of course you can paint. All right, I would probably sharpen it. So again, hold down Control, hold down Alt, and just click, 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 click. That's going to sharpen your mask. And again, it's up to you if that's okay, or maybe you want less around the edges. So I'm thinking I want less around here. So you basically have two options. What you can do is actually separate it. Sorry, I'm still trying to get my. I think that's good. So we can separate it. Down here at the bottom, we have something called split. Under split, we have something called split unmask points or split mask points. I want to split my mask. So if I click on that, what's going to happen is that I now have two objects here. I have my head, and then I have my body. And if I turn off the body and I select the head, it literally is just the head. Now you have to be careful with this type of procedure, because what happens if I go in here and I start adding dividing, if I start dividing, it will actually soften these edges. And I'm going to try to bring back the head and the body. They might not fit, right? So that's an issue. So the other process, let me go back to my creature mesh. The other process is, of course, to convert it into a polygroup. So we can do a Control W, and it doesn't look like anything happened. But if we take a look at here, we now have a polygroup. To control polygroups, you have to hold down Control Shift, and then you can select this one, which is concentrating for that one. If I click on it again, it basically shows this one. And if you want to get out of the polygroup, you can just click out here. So that just keeps things together, but it looks like it's separated because of the different polygroup. So that might be a better way to work. So let's say, for example, I want to separate the arms. So let's see, what's the easiest way for me? It might be easier for me to just get the body. Again, there's options here. You can use the mask lasso. Up, up, up. Thank goodness for undo, I swear. All right, once you go that, you can take the mask pen and just kind of, oops, Alt, Alt. I got a new keyboard. It is a little bit, it requires a little bit more pressure for it to work. So let's go ahead and paint this out as best as I can. I do have symmetry on, so if yours does not have symmetry, just keep that in mind, that you don't forget to turn off symmetry. You can turn off symmetry by clicking on the letter X. So once again, I would actually tighten your mask by holding down Control Alt and clicking on the mask, which makes it a little more solid. And then once again, Control W. Doesn't look like anything happened, but if we click on the wireframe, we now have 3 polygroups. We have the head, we have the arms, and then we have the rest of the tail. Cool. All right. So the next part is finding reference. So how do I want this thing to look like? Right. So mine's kind of like a mix of stuff. So one is this tail. What type of tail do I want it to look like? Or what do I want the face to look like? I feel like the face can be a little bit kind of like a giraffe. I'm thinking of a giraffe, and the arms I want it to be, they're kind of muscular. So I'm thinking gorilla-like. And then, but I also want scales and things like that for this creature. So I wanted to show you a couple of tools that we haven't really gone over, and they're kind of fun. So let's focus on the head. And right now, let me get out of, I'm going to go back to drag rectangle and alpha off. So we have gone basically through almost every single one of these brushes, except for these chisels. So these chisels are pretty fun because when I click on them, these tools come out. And what happens is that I can actually use these tools to create eyes, for example, ears, different types of ears, a weird scary mouth, and some noses and stuff like that. So for example, let's say I thought this creature would look cute with a pig nose. So I'm going to grab the pig nose and I'm going to turn off symmetry because it's going to create a pig nose right there. And you'll notice that it's very low poly. So I'm going to undo. And because my computer can handle it, I'm going to divide again. So now I'm getting to the 682s, which, it's okay. It's actually, I'm going to probably go way higher, but let's go ahead and you can see that I can now create a little bit of a pig nose. So if you don't want the 2 nostrils, you can always just click X and then you can put your little pig nose in the front. Right, so there it is, my pig nose. Does it make sense? It's not what I'm going for, but again, that's an option. We do have eyes, so these are kind of like human eyes. So if you want to, you can put kind of like a, oops, I probably should have done the symmetry. You can add eyes, so it actually puts it in your mesh. It's permanently on your mesh. It's not in a separate subtool. So if I open this up and I draw on this, you're going to see that it's not in its own separate, it's actually in your mesh. Okay, so keep that in mind. And there's a bunch of other ones. So that's, notice that these are actually alpha maps. So that's the fun part, is that you can actually find these alpha maps and just design and create them yourself. But there's more to this alpha map. It's actually a 3D print. It's actually a 3D model. So it's not just a stamp, it actually has 3D geometry on it. So that's this one. We also have Chisel Creature. So the creature has scales, horns, it has nostrils. So for example, maybe I want to put this type of nostril in front of my creature, which I kind of do. So I just got to find the right shape and nostril, something like that. So really fast, you can get some really great details. There's an eye here. So if I want to, I can kind of put in an eye. Right, which I kind of like. And there's like weird looking noses and stuff like that. There's ears if you want to give your character like elven ears or something, and horns. So if you want to, you can give them some spikes. So maybe a spike up here at the top would be appropriate for my dangerous looking creature. So take a look at these interesting looking things and see if any of these can apply to you. For example, I like the scales. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just kind of give him some scales. And I should probably start from the bottom. Right, so really fast with these stamps, you can create some really interesting looking things. Now, the only issue with this is that everybody can recognize these because there's only like one type of scale. So if you look at other 3D models, you're going to be like, I know that. That's just a brush from ZBrush. So just keep that in mind that these things are very familiar, especially for the ones that do know how to use ZBrush. But it's a really great way to start. Unfortunately, in this ZBrush, you can't make these, but in the actual ZBrush, you can actually make your own spikes and things like that, or feathers, for example, and then create your own stamps. And it just makes it really easy to texture or to create your geometry. So that's basically these things. There is another one called Chisel Organic. And give it a second to upload. And this provides you with, again, a range. I'm going to start from the left. Oh my gosh, this one's got lots. So ears, we have human noses. We have human ears, even a base one in case you want to start low poly. You've got human eyebrows, human mouth. That's a tooth if you're interested in teeth. We have other types of teeth. I don't know what rough teeth is. There you go, rough teeth. If you're interested in creating some animal fur, so let's say I want to create animal fur on this, you can actually kind of give them maybe a little bit of, you have to kind of layer it. But this is kind of like adding geometry to so don't forget to add some smaller ones. Some bigger ones, things like that. Here's smaller fur, so you can put smaller fur at the top here. I do encourage you guys to look up free alphas and stuff like that for ZBrush. ZBrush community has a tendency to share. So if you're interested in sharing or you want to see what they're producing, then it might be a cool idea. All right, so right away, just by using these brushes, I can get this really interesting looking creature. Now, maybe it's not what you're looking for, and that's perfectly fine. But again, it's kind of nice to be creative and just use the things that are there for you. And you can see that I can kind of make this very interesting. There's different types of fur. As you can see, there's like short fur that's actually more attached to the skin, so it doesn't stick out as much. So it's a little bit gentler. And different types of fur. We have noses, as I kind of mentioned before. We have animal eyes, so you can pick your animal eyes. We have different types of ears. There's different types of horns. I kind of like this one, the animal fin, which again, I'm going to turn off symmetry. I can add fins to this little guy. And by little, it's probably not that little since it's got fur and scales and things like that. There's different types of scales. There's different types of mouths. There's just different types of, they even have anime eyes, which I find really weird. There's fungus that you can kind of play around with, add some abstract stuff, and there's more abstract and a bunch of other stuff. So it's really pretty fun. They provide you with a lot. Think about if any of these is useful for your character. All right, so let's go back to the standard brush. Let's see, there is one more. It's called a Chisel Shape. This is more like just your basic shapes. So if you're interested in creating like squares and stuff like that, you can. Doesn't really apply here. It would probably apply more to like the sci-fi crate and stuff. But I didn't want to overwhelm you guys with all this information, but there's definitely things that you can use as well. So I've already added a lot of detail, but there's a lot of really flat space in the head. So I really want to start focusing on how to give this a little bit more detail. So one of the alphas that I recommend using is Alpha 23, and you can use color spray as well. And what this does is that, that's a little too high. You can reduce the intensity, and this will give you a little bit of a skin texture. So what's nice about this
is that right off the bat, you can give your object some sort of noise information or skin information so that it looks like is more interesting. Now, it's all similar, right? It's the same noise throughout the whole thing, but it still gives it a little bit of information around here. Instead of having this really smooth mesh, I can actually go in and quickly add this texture to my object so that it feels like there's something already there. I can always go back and add more, but this will give me kind of like a very basic noise information. Right, so compared to the tail and versus here, you can see that I'm getting a little bit more information. Now, if you want to continue using this, you can reduce or increase the size. You can increase the intensity and maybe add noises in certain areas that you know is a little bit more porous. So for example, you may want to add more noise here, maybe even hit the outs so that it's a negative pushing in, and you can kind of break up the even texture. So some areas are going to be a little bit, it's all going to be noisy, but some areas are going to be more noisy than others. So that's really up to you and how you want your mesh to look like.
Now that we understand the chisel brush and all these other wonderful ZBrush tools, in the next video tutorial, we're going to start talking about how to create muscles, use reference to make sure we get accurate muscles and veins. We're going to define the claws as well as more information on the body to make it look more like a scorpion. And we're also going to be talking about how to make wings. So that's going to be in the next video tutorial. Lots of things to cover. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video tutorial on ZBrushCore and how to create a creature. In the next video tutorial, we're going to continue working on the creature and finalize it. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. That is your message to me, letting me know that you like this content and that you want to see more. Please share these videos. If you know an artist out there that's learning ZBrush, it would be amazing if you could share these videos with them. Take a look at academicphoenixplus.com, my website with lots of resources for you, including free 3D models, images, trainings, and so much more. Also, take a look at my e-courses. Those are deep dives into Maya, including modeling, texturing, and lighting. By purchasing one of those e-courses, that would be amazing. That really shows your support. Again, thank you so much for watching. Keep creating, and I will see you next time.